Hello everyone. For this session, we want to take a look at removing a domain controller from a domain. Remember that a server becomes a domain controller when you install the Active Directory Domain Services role, and then you promote that server to a domain controller. So we're looking at actually removing a domain controller from the domain. In order to remove a domain controller, you have to be a member of the domain admin group, which exists in Active Directory. If you want to remove the domain controller that is the last domain controller within the domain or forest, then you have to be a member of the enterprise admin group. We're going to begin removing the Active Directory Domain Services role by clicking on Manage, Remove Roles and Features. Click Next on the Before You Begin screen. Make sure you have the correct server selected, then click Next. And we're going to uncheck the box by Active Directory Domain Services. Remember that a server becomes a domain controller when Active Directory Domain Services is installed, and then after it has been installed, you have to promote the server to a domain controller. So our first step here is that we need to first demote the server so that we can then go back and uninstall Active Directory Domain Services. So we're going to click and uncheck that box, clear it. Then we're going to click on Remove Features. And the features are being removed. And we come up here with a validation error. The Remove Roles and Features wizard will give us this error, and this error appears by design. The reason for this is that the Active Directory Domain Services server role binaries cannot be removed while the server is running as a domain controller. So on this screen here, on this error screen, we want to click on Demote this domain controller. We have a choice here on this credentials page. If your domain controller is the last domain controller in the domain, then you click the checkbox. Or you might want to force the removal of the domain controller. One of the reasons why you might want to do that is because the domain controller might not be running. Perhaps it is not working. And that is when you actually have to force the removal of the domain controller. For our session, we're going to click on last domain controller in the domain. And please note that our server will restart after the demotion operation. And then we remember I said we have to go back then and uncheck that Active Directory Domain Services box again to actually remove the server as a domain controller. So we want to click on Next. And we want to say Proceed with Removal. Click Next again. And we want to remove these two roles here. We want to remove DNS zone. And we want to remove application partitions. We don't need them. We want to actually remove everything from this domain controller. So you're going to click Next. And you're asked to type the new administrator password. So we're going to type the password. And you can look at the lab instructions for the password to put in here. Then you're going to click Next. Before you actually click on Demote, you want to review your selections, because when the process is complete, this domain will no longer exist. So you want to go ahead and click on Demote. And you can see that the demotion has started. And we have to wait for that demotion to complete, and our server will restart. There's one thing that I want you to keep in mind. This is a two-step process. First, you have to demote, and once the demotion is completed, then you're going to have to sign off the server, and the server will restart. So here we're about to sign off the server, so I'm going to click on Close. You can see the services are stopping and they will restart. Once the server restarts, we have to log back onto the server, and then we have to go to Manage again and remove that Active Directory Domain Services role. So we are at the Control, Alt, and Delete screen. We want to log back in to the server, and we actually want to remove that role. We are now logged back into the server, so we want to go to Manage, Remove Roles and Features. Next again on the Before You Begin screen. Next on the Destination screen. And we want to uncheck again Active Directory Domain Services. Click on Remove Features. Click on Next. Click on Next again on the feature page. And we want then to click on Remove. And we can see the removal started on the server. After the role is removed, then we will click on Close. We want to check the server just to make sure that that role, Active Directory Domain Services, no longer exists. And to do that, we can click on Manage, Remove Roles and Features, Next, Next again, and we can see here that it says Active Directory Domain Services not installed. So our server is no more a domain controller because that role has been removed. Remember, first of all, we demoted the server, and after demotion, we came back in and removed that tick from Active Directory Domain Services. So remember again, two-step process, demotion and removal. This is the end of our session. I want to thank you for listening.